Hi, I'm Dale Lefebvre from New Games.
And I'm John Alsop. You know this already. I want to talk a bit more about the freedom of new games, the freedom that it gives people, because there's all sorts of ways that you can use new games. The way that struck me was that you could run new games like a kind of yoga class in a city, so it's regular and people can kind of come along for the benefit of it, and even if it's once a month, it could be once a week or whatever. But I'm thinking that having done this, you could set up, let's say you were in a city, you could set up 2 or 3 classes even every week around the city. Or even just one a week. I mean, if you did just one class and people paid what they felt at the end of the class, and you end up with £50. You might, that's kind of £200 at the end of the month that you didn't have before, and you enjoyed yourself. So. And if you do three of those classes, it turns into an additional and not insignificant amount. And I don't know whether we know whether pay as you feel or charging for it or whatever. We haven't kind of decided how that's going to go yet.
Well, the way I do my classes is I say a £5 recommended donation, and sometimes people give more, but at least they usually give 5. But if money's an issue, I really don't want to keep anyone away, so they can pay what they can afford. So that's fine with me. And it depends on the interest where you are, and I guess in some ways you have to drum up a bit of interest, and we can help with that to supply information about new games that you can use.
Another kind of source of income from it is business. So they obviously are used to paying a bit more.
Better paying a lot.
So you could go along to a business conference. You could talk to the personnel department of a company and kind of...
Yeah, I mean, at some point perhaps they're having a meeting where you could start it by leading a game, and what that does is to get people who are coming to the meeting relaxed, and maybe it's a meeting where there is a lot of tension and they need to have a bit of a relaxed start to be able to get along in an amicable way. Or it could be between 2 departments where they're having trouble with each other, and that by doing the games with them, they kind of reduce the tensions a bit. That can be taken further if you want to talk about what things are afterwards, what things are coming up for them. But to start off with this as a way to getting to the problems in a friendly way. So when if you're really having a conflict with somebody, if you're doing some games with them and you're having a laugh with them, it at least reduces the tension a bit, so maybe you can talk more easily about what's going on.
Education is obviously a big deal, so summer camps and schools, obviously.
After-school programs.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you do a lot with young people and children. Yeah,
and teachers, if they can teach a lesson using a game, the kids really love that, and they'll remember what you're trying to teach as well. So that's a great way to have a lesson, and it's fun for the teacher as well.
And one of the things that's come back from when we wrote out and said, what are your 2 big questions? People were relating stories about, okay, so I came across new games when I was in rehab, or I go to this kind of men's group, and we kind of do new games, there. And so there's a big role in healing, isn't there? A big role in kind of therapy.
Yeah, well, I feel that's definitely true, and I can use my own personal example of when my mother passed. When I flew from San Francisco to Chicago for the funeral, but then when I came back, I basically sat around for a month and just kind of looked out the window into the park across the street, and I didn't feel like doing anything, and that was fine. And but then I realized, well, I had this date with this psychiatric daycare center that I had planned to do during this time, but I postponed it because I really wasn't ready to do anything, and I was okay with that. And they were too. And so finally I thought, well, I better contact them. And so I gave them a call, and they said, yes, you can come to the state. And when I got there, they told me, like, oh, one of their people had jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge the week before. So the people there were in a state. I was kind of in a state. And I was introduced. And for the first time, and only time that I can remember, I couldn't even get up. I just it wasn't there. And then finally one of the people who would be presenting the games to said, hey, are we going to do some games? And I said, I hope so, because I wasn't sure. But that was enough to get me going. And we got up and we did some games, and I said, well, you know, this was actually along the same park that I lived on, and I said, why don't we go over there, you know, because it was outdoors, it was wonderful. And for 2 hours we played and we had fun, and it kind of lifted our spirits. And I think it's important, like when you're in grieving, to grieve, yes, that's important, but not to get totally stuck in it. Sometimes you have to give yourself some space to be able to heal. And I think that was important for them and me. So it gave us both some healing that we needed. So that was, yeah, that worked very well.
That's quite profound, really, isn't it, that whole thing?
Well, it was, because these folks were really kind of shattered, because one of their mates had just, you know, committed suicide, and they were in it.
Heavy.
Yeah.
One of the things you talked about in the last video was in the workshop that we're planning is sending people off to invent new games.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, you know, how you go about that. You know, what are they sent away to do? How does that work?
Well, we have a process
Okay,
for this.
Good. I'm so glad.
Yes. I have a chart, a flip chart usually. I kind of make 3 columns, and then I make about 5 rows, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know.
Right.
And I put on the top of each column, put like players on the top of one, action or movement that these players might do, and then the third one would be fantasy that is involved. And then I put some numbers along the side, and have, say we have 3 groups. Each group will think of a number between 100 and 999, and they give me that number, I write it down, and I correlate. The first column relates, you know, like 197. I find the 1 in the first column, and oh, we have older folks. The second number is for the second column 9. I find the 9 here. Oh, they're skipping. Wonderful. Okay, and the third column is for the fantasy. Like, oh, here we go. Underwater. Okay, so we have old folks skipping underwater. Take that away, 10 minutes, create a game using those elements.
Wow.
Now it's not just them going slow, skipping slowly like because they're old and underwater, but there has to be something which makes it a game as well. Yeah. Perhaps there's a shark.
We'll do that. We'll do that in the next video.
Oh,
that's the next video.
Coming events. Yeah.
So we have this weekend, the 21st of April 2018. And that's going to be, that's a workshop so that you can learn how to lead new games. It's the only one in Sheffield. They're limited tickets, and you'll see a link below or on video or wherever to go and buy your tickets. So go do it.
Right away.
All right.